This reflection's based on Mark chapter 7 and verses 24 and following. And it's a story about a time that Jesus left the area of Israel and went into Gentile territory up to the north west of Israel. And it says he went into a house and he didn't want anyone to know he was there. However, a local woman heard about his presence. She was Greek, but she was born in Syria. And she went to Jesus and she asked him to heal her daughter because she said her daughter was being plagued by a demon. This is where we get a bit of a shock at Jesus' reply. He said this, "First, let the children eat all they want, for it's not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs." All right, that's a perfectly sensible statement. You don't give the children's meal to the dog. But it does imply that he's seeing her as a dog. But the woman was very quick with her reply. She said, "But even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs." And Jesus answered her and said, "For such a reply, you may go. The demon has left your daughter." And we read that she went home, found her daughter lying on the bed, and she was completely healed. So what do we make of the story? Firstly, it seems like Jesus wanted some time alone. We've been reading through Mark how the crowds were following him and sort of pestering him. He really didn't get that downtime. And so he's left the territory so he could have some downtime. That makes him very human. Some of the other Gospels mention his disciples with him, and so it could have been that he wanted to take them aside and give them some teaching. We don't know. Anyway, he wanted to be alone. So this woman comes to him begging for her daughter. Let's look at her for a minute. She was a Gentile. She wasn't part of the Jewish religion. She came on her own. Now that was very bold. It was a bold thing for any woman in that society to approach a man, and especially a man that she didn't know, a stranger. But she came in complete faith that Jesus could heal her daughter. So nothing was going to stop her. This is the love of a mother who wants the best for her daughter. What was Jesus' motive for his reply, that you don't give the children's food to the dogs? Well, there's a couple of possibilities. One is that Jesus had come to the nation of Israel and he was to show them exactly what God was like. And he'd only just begun his ministry. And so it really wasn't good timing to be spreading it to other nations. He had to get the Jewish people to understand first, and then they were to be the ones who would take it to other nations. So this was a sense of planning, a timing. Or it could have been that he wanted to really test her. Is this what she really, really wants? Now, Jesus had the ability to see into a person's heart. We get this in the picture of the rich young man who went to Jesus and said, "What must I do to inherit eternal life?" And Jesus looked at him and realised that for this man, his wealth was what mattered most to him. And so he said to him, "Look, you've got to sell your goods and give to the poor and then come and follow me." And of course, the rich young man couldn't do that because his wealth meant too much to him. So is Jesus pushing this woman? Thinks, yeah, okay, she really, really wants this healing for her daughter. Let's test her and see. Her answer showed that all that mattered to her was the condition of her daughter. She was willing to be seen as someone who only deserved the crumbs of something that was to be for someone else. And this is what Jesus commended her for and told her to go, that her daughter was healed. It's an amazing example of faith. She'd obviously heard all about Jesus, what he'd done in Galilee, and she believed. Now, that was in contrast to the Jewish leaders who'd seen all the same things, and yet they didn't really believe. They were trying to nitpick Jesus and say, "Why aren't your disciples washing their hands in the correct way before they eat?" and so on. Her belief was simple, and it was based on evidence, what she'd seen and heard. But her belief was also very bold. She went alone, a very bold thing for a woman to do, to ask a man for help. Her belief was humble. She was willing to be seen just as a dog under the table, and she was tenacious. Does our faith measure up in this way? Do we believe what we've read and seen? Or do we listen to the wisdom of this world which says, don't be so naive? If we come to God and we seem to get a knock back, do we say, that's it, God doesn't care, I give up? Or are we willing to keep persisting in prayer? Luke 15, Jesus tells his followers a story, and he says there is a woman who wanted justice, and she went to the judge, and the judge just ignored her. And so she just kept going and going and going until the judge finally said, for goodness sake, I'll give her what she needs just to keep her quiet. And then he contrasts that to God the Father and said, how much more will God the Father give what you're asking for? He says this, and will not God bring about justice for his chosen ones who cry out to him day and night? Will he keep putting them off? I tell you, he will see they get justice and get it quickly. We're called to be persistent in prayer. God always answers prayer, but it's not always in the timing that we want, and it's not always in the way that we want. But it's always the right timing, and it's always what is absolutely best for us. This woman has a lot to teach us about faith.